Start streaming. Hmm? Are we live yet? Come on. There we go. We're live now. Yeah, definitely. We're definitely live. Good evening, everybody. It's 9:30 on the East Coast, 6:30 on the West Coast. Time for your weekly Claim to Jane live stream. James, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great this evening. How are you doing?
I am managing.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes life stuff throws you
It throws you
a couple of, in your
curveballs.
case, a couple of wrenches, so you're dealing
Yeah,
with that after that. But
yeah.
yeah, but you're here, you're chuckling, so that's good.
Yeah,
Love
I've dealt with the things that I have to dealt with,
it.
have to deal with, and hopefully there won't be any downstream consequences. But I think I've got it handled. I think I've got it handled.
That's good.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So how about you? How are things?
no complaints really. Looking forward to chatting you up with about some games, some more gaming talk, randomly, and then I'll start working right off the bat. I'll start sharing my
Yeah, let's
screen and
do it. Yeah, let's see what you got,
we'll
and
go and ramble a little bit.
let's do it. Yeah. I
All
admit I
right.
haven't played many games this last week. I've been
Yeah.
crazy busy with projects.
Yeah, I figured as much from what you've been telling me. But that's okay. I can carry it for us this week for sure.
All right. Well, I can at least I can find something to rant about at some point. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I can co-rant with you too if it's offensive to me as well. But
Okay.
if it's
Great.
offensive to me as well. But see, it's our familiar side character Mitchell.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm gonna spend today doing the three-quarter pose, not this pose. It's already three quarters, yes, and he's holding martini. But I'm gonna set him up for rigging for us for to use an animation for
Great.
animation purposes. Right now, he's
Awesome.
pretty static.
Yeah.
These aren't really symbols yet that you use in Flash. They're not practical in any sense, really. So I'll be doing a little bit of that today.
Mhm. Mhm.
And as we do it, I will chat with you about game stuff as well, and whatever else comes to mind on your side of things. So with that being said, I'll get to work. As far as games are concerned, I think I told you last week, I have moved on from Moment Heroes 3. I've already beat it, and I'm kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
waiting for you to get your take on it. You've already dealt with one boss, which is my favorite in the whole game, but there's a plenty of other moments in the game that are really funny that I don't think you've got to yet. But yeah, again, I'm raving about that game. Um, and then enjoyed it immensely. But the new game I've moved on from is Bloodstained. I'm playing that now, Ritual of the
Oh.
Night.
Oh yeah. 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 I bought that on the Switch and kind of regretted it honestly
Mm-hmm.
because the load times were so bad that anytime I tried to do anything, um, like anytime I died, it took me like way too long to get back into the game, especially in a game that's uh, based on save points, like discrete save points.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I've been playing it on PS4,
Mm-hmm.
based on your recommendation for sure. And it made me as I'm playing it, it just made me wonder how bad is it on the Switch? Because on the PS4, I feel like it takes forever.
Really interesting.
Yeah, it's like I'm just annoyed, and I start to wonder, is it because they made? I mean, because I remember reading someplace that they made the game for mobile,
Mm-hmm.
and they kind of did a shotgun approach, trying to get it on a whole bunch of different platforms. So it could be that just the source game
Mm-hmm.
is just a really heavy game to where they didn't optimize it correctly. Because I'm playing it on PS4. I see one load screen, then I see a second load screen. Then I get to the save screen where she's on the couch and then she stands up, go to the next screen, and then there's another load screen with little
Mm.
circles. Like it's nothing but loads.
Hmm.
The thing about this game that I learned is you can't die. If you die, that's where the punishment really is in the game. It load screens.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. That's what kind of turned me off is because the difficulty is relatively high for a Metroidvania, and so that's fine. Dying is a part of the process, but the length of time it took to get back into the game space was crazy.
Yeah, I mean you could pretty much just go brew yourself a cup of coffee or something with some. I'm being a little dramatic here. It's not that bad, but I'm very curious. It's not that bad, but I'm very curious. I almost want to just time how long it takes me, and then compare it to your Switch, because I
Hmm.
bet I don't know. I'm very curious how long it really is.
Yeah, something we can
It
look up at
feels,
some point for sure. Yeah.
yeah, it feels like it takes forever, and it's just and then in my head I'm thinking this is a side-scrolling game. Like, why is it taking so long just to preload two screens around from the save spot?
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
armchair programming, on the side, but you're trying to think like how much do you really need to load from one save screen, to the adjacent room, and then buffer from there.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
that's my thought. Because there's games that do a heck of a lot more than this game does. Um, that load pretty much flawlessly. I don't really notice it as much. But
Mhm.
yeah. As far as Metroidvania, I don't know if I can't tell if it's hard or not. It's been pretty pedestrian so far. I like it. It's a really fun game though.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah. When you're actually playing it, it's super fun.
yeah. But you consider it a more difficult side-scrolling platforming type of game?
Yeah. I mean, for me, the early bosses were harder than I was expecting.
Okay.
Honestly.
Uh-huh.
In at least in Symphony of the Night, they're pretty patient with you, and they give you, at least my memory of Symphony of the Night. Now, admittedly, this was a long time ago, but
Mhm.
the early bosses at least were kind of gimmies, just to make you feel a little bit more powerful and give you
Uh-huh.
a sense of accomplishment.
Mhm.
But um, but yeah, I mean, it felt a little bit more challenging to me than what I was expecting.
So have you played a Metroidvania game for a while? Was this the first one you played, in a bit, and then
This is the first one I'd played in a bit for sure. I think the
okay,
last Metroidvania style game I played was actually Metroid Samus Returns on the 3DS.
okay, and that's
Yeah.
yeah. I never after they introduced that QTE mechanic to that game, I kind of stopped playing it.
Yeah,
Where
unfortunately they're adding that back in Metroid Prime
oh
or
no,
in Metroid Dread. Yeah, it's the same
yes,
team that did the Return of Samus.
why?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, well, I may not buy it anyway. I mean, even seeing the trailer and stuff like that, it just looked okay. Not enough for me to want to spend uh, premium price for a game. I guess I'd probably wait for
Mhm.
it to go on sale or
Yeah.
buy it. And at this point, um, yeah, I'm not really feeling that QTE part of it. I just want to play the game, run to the side, clean house on that stage, and then move to the next screen.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing that's kind of like red flag for me is that the robot, the AI robots, the ME robots,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like in these special rooms, and they
Mm-hmm.
each have special abilities, and you have to like sneak past them,
Mm-hmm.
and they're unkillable. But if they catch you, you have like a very narrow window to counter them and escape. And if you miss that window, they kill you.
What?
Yeah,
Wow.
instant death.
Really.
And
So
so instant death for me is never fun. Never fun. And so I'm kind of like nervous about that too. My my gut tells me that I think it's going to be a rough. I don't know that I'm going to enjoy it.
are you buying this launch day? This game?
I don't know. We'll see. I've got so many other games I'm currently playing right now. I certainly don't need to spend any more money on any more games.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but we'll see. We'll see. So take me through. What are you setting up right now?
I am pretty much just doing a standard standing three-quarter pose, like
Mm-hmm.
right here on the left side here.
Mm-hmm.
This pose isn't very practical to use anywhere really in our episode. It's more or less just a character pose to kind of get
Sure.
a thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but this is going to be what he'd be looking like standing behind the bar, for example. So I want to make sure I get everything kind of set up and rigged that way for acting purposes when uh, Jane talks to him and stuff like that. So I want him kind of more in a static, kind of more unfun pose, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
a functional pose for serving drinks.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So
We got the bell
um,
bottom, so I mean that's critical. So.
yeah, and I'm trying to keep those in. I do like the way. I mean, when I did the initial drawing for him here on the left, I do like the way I kind of played around with his legs a little bit. I kind of want to keep that there, but it's kind of difficult to do when he's standing straight up and down like this. But I'm still playing with it. I'm not done by any means, but that's just one thing I'm trying to think about is how do I keep that spirit of the weird kind of rinky dinky kind of feel for his legs. But yeah, as long as the bell bottom's there, I think that helps. So I can forgive it. And again, nobody's ever really staring at legs anyway, especially if you're behind the bar. Who's really going to see that?
Right.
I'm not too concerned about it. Yeah, but it does bring up other questions about Mitchell in general.
Like what? Yeah.
The color scheme. I'm trying to go. I mean, we talked about this way, a very long time ago about the color scheme for the bar. I wanted to kind of go with more of a, what do you call it? Comedy store kind of feel.
Yeah, like a brick background and things of that nature. Yeah, sure.
So there's that kind of stuff I kind of want to talk about tonight too. I also want to think about the layout of Mitchell's bar too, which I'll probably do a sketch here on the side after I'm done kind of doing a post here. But or I don't know, it depends on if we get to it tonight or maybe next week. But I do want to do another pass on the layout of the bar itself and how it's designed. For example, I know we've talked about there's going to be a point where Calamity's going to live in Dry Gold Gorge, and she takes residence in the bar, right? In Mitchell's bar, in an upstairs room. Right? Isn't that what we have right now?
Yeah, that's where we're at. Yeah.
So that implies that I've got to think about designing Mitchell's bar to have 2 floors. So does that include? I'm not going to go with. I don't think I'm going to go with a spiral staircase, but I'll probably do a staircase. Maybe I'll mirror on both sides. I don't know yet. These are all things I kind of want to feel out, and I might try to draw that out here tonight or maybe next week, and play with it a little bit.
Okay, that sounds good.
So yeah. What are your thoughts on Mitchell's bar itself? When you were envisioning Calamity living upstairs, what were you thinking about? Like, what were you envisioning in your head as you were writing about Mitchell hanging out in the bar and stuff like that?
Oh, I mean, it's sort of his. I mean, he obviously has his own house, right?
Yep.
But I suspect that he spends basically all of his time at the Prickly Pear. So yeah, I think his house is probably in a lot of disarray, right? Sorry, just give me 1 second here. And
yeah, his house is definitely going to be in this disarray, disheveled, very much.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not going to be like in good shape, like the bar is, right? And so the bar really is going to be more his home. It wouldn't surprise me if he actually had a futon in the office behind the bar.
So do you think it's almost like this house is like an accessory? Like, oh, I have a house, and that's how sleep end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that with him. That's actually kind of a relief of sorts because I don't have to think too much about the interior of his house for right now. Going forward, I can just work on the bar itself, and then wrecking it in our episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but in any case, yeah. And I think that he, I don't know. So I don't think anybody actually stays in the rooms upstairs
except for Calamity.
except for Calamity. Yeah, and so he's never had to service those places. He's never had to clean them up. Um, and so as a result, he's. I think that there's going to be like a, there's going to be like a. There'll be like a fun B story somewhere along the lines where the Calamity's room keeps getting dirtier and dirtier and dirtier, and she's like, "Hey, are you ever going to clean this room?" Right? And it's just like it's just like, "Oh, right. Oh, shoot. Yeah, I guess I do need to do that. Don't I?"
um, it could kind of come into a funny relationship type thing too, where he scolds her and treats her like a teenage daughter. Says, "When are you gonna clean up your room?" And
Yeah.
she's supposed to
Yeah.
kind of play with that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And yeah, I just think that it'd be really funny if like he never actually expected anybody to stay in the room, and so when Calamity actually goes, "Hey, I want a room," he's like, "Oh," and he pulls out like the guest book, and it's like covered in dust, and like she just doesn't know, like what, and he's like, "Well, I don't know, no one's ever stayed here before," and then he opens it up, and he's like, "Let's see how far we go," and it's just the first page. And so literally no one has ever been there. He got this bar. Who knows how he got this bar, right?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and so like it's a complete like front basically for his stand-up comedy routine. And then when someone actually shows up and wants to use the services, he literally doesn't know what to do with it. I mean, like he's not even a particularly good bartender, right?
Yeah.
And then for him to have rooms above the bar in the saloon is just preposterous. It's just totally ridiculous.
I just thought about potential. I mean, if we ever needed to have something to do with Mitchell, or we need another story, we could have mysterious guests that come in and book rooms with Mitchell, and then end up being the villain of the week type of a scenario.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it would be funny, like, if Big City Lawyer, right? So the non-lethal characters, the ones that Calamity aren't fighting in, like, traditional fights, they actually, like, they take up room in the saloon. And, like, and then Mitchell complains, like, before you came into town, I never had to worry about these rooms, right? And now you're here, I've got Big City Lawyer, I've got X, I've got this, I've got Y staying, and I'm going to have to hire a maid, like, to clean this. This is ridiculous, right?
Yeah. Can you imagine a Big City Lawyer episode where Calamity gets out of her room, she's all ready to go, and has to go to court, and Big City just steps out of the opposite
Yeah, and
room.
they walk awkwardly down the stairs together to the courthouse. I just think it would be a hilarious scene if, like, after the act break, we come in, and Calamity closes her door and locks it, and she looks up, and there's Big City Lawyer, and they don't say anything, and they both walk, and then they walk down the stairs together, and then out the front doors, again, not saying anything, down the street to the sheriff's office or the courthouse. They go into the courthouse, and they walk up to the table. Big City Lawyer sits at the prosecutor's desk. Calamity Jane sits at the defendant's desk. And, like, that whole sequence, just to play it up, just like vaudeville style, right? Like, just go real big with it.
I just think about a scene where they're both walking down the stairs together silently, and then Big City Lawyer screams saying, "Can't wait to get my hands on that continental breakfast," kind of thing. Walks off, and then Jane stops, looks, and goes, "This is our continental breakfast?" there's Mitchell with that.
Right.
It's
It's yeah,
and stuff like that.
Right. But all he's making is cereal and, like, prepackaged things, and he's got, like, prepackaged granola bars, but he's still dressed up like a fucking excuse me again, chef. Yeah, and he's got, like, the chef hat on top of his bag.
Yeah. Yes, of course. And then I mean, if you really want to push it, then Jane walks up and starts confronting Mitchell. When did you start serving continental breakfast? Then there's a little digital clock. Bing, 10 a.m. Sorry, breakfast is closed.
Yeah.
Breakfast is closed.
Yeah, exactly.
Always happens.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. So there's some fun to be had there.
Yeah, without a doubt. No, I mean, I think that there's a lot of opportunity to play inside the Prickly Pear, and I do think that it's going to become a pretty central location. Um, I think that we're gonna see a lot of like fun little story and character interactions. I feel like there's going to be a lot of potential for characters to show up there and hang out, and just do scenes in the saloon. I mean, like any Western, right? There's always a big scene, a big shootout in the saloon, or people standing around. And in the pilot, in a lot of the earlier episodes, obviously it's going to be relatively empty, with just Clem. But again, now that Calamity's in town and she's drawing all of this adventure to her, right? The saloon is going to become a much more lively place. And and now I'm just going broad. Now I'm just playing around with it. But I think that there's a lot of potential to create growth in Mitchell's character as a result. Like he starts off as a failed stand-up comedian who's inheriting a failing saloon and hotel, right? Kalamity is basically his first guest ever. Lord only knows where Clem sleeps. And then, right, over the course of the series, Mitchell is forced to adapt because people are actually coming into his bar and actually wanting to utilize his services, and his purpose might change. And instead of trying to be a stand-up comedian, perhaps he actually becomes, the proprietor of this establishment, and that changes his character. That would provide growth. And I'm not saying that that's what we will do, but it's just an interesting, idea, an interesting thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, personally, I don't ever want to see him not pursue his.
No, but I think in that regard, like becoming a better proprietor of the Prickly Pear, it could actually start giving him some confidence, which then makes him a better stand-up comedian, right? And it would like start organically, right? So he's working with, or he's working, and he's actually serving people at the bar and that kind of stuff, and then he says something that's genuinely funny, and it gets a laugh, and he's like, "Wait, that didn't come from my speakers." They're like, "Wait, you actually laughed at that?" Right? So it like you see that growth, you see that change that way.
Yeah. That could be pretty funny. Yeah, it's weird how one space can change the dynamic of a character. Again, that's why it's funny. Like I had to spend a lot of time with the backgrounds because they are essentially another character. They just don't speak if we're just visually. And Mitchell's bar seems really important as his sidekick for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I think it could also help with the dynamics of his relationship with Calamity Jane as well, right? So it's not just this she's sort of bemused and curious about this figure. It's a real opportunity for them to connect on a level and have some growth.
Yeah. Trying to think what else with Mitchell. Speaking of the bar, I mean, I'll just do a sketch real quick here on the side. Well, actually, I'll make an empty frame here. We'll do that classic entranceway. So yeah, there's how you enter the bar. There's the bar itself. All back here. So yeah, I think at this point I'm drawing kind of in a really cheesy perspective, terrible perspective, but yeah, we'll need to have a second floor.
Yeah, for sure.
Rooms on the side there, and then I guess, I mean, again, like in those old westerns, they have these spirally staircases that kind of come down like this. I'm gonna be doing this most likely in a Blender, so I don't know if I want to do spiral. I mean, and this is just where just my skill set's just as terrible with Blender. I mean, I can do some basic stuff with it. I don't know. Might be kind of ambitious to kind of try to model something like this. I mean, I might give it a shot. I mean,
Well, I mean,
And
I've seen plenty of saloons that are just 90-degree angles too, like
yes, or
the
classic
saloon
90
in
angles, yeah.
Deadwood. Yeah, and I
Mhm.
don't remember the name of the bar right now, but it just had like, yeah, it just came straight down. Yeah.
Yeah. So visually, I mean, definitely, I think it has some. There's some, there is some chutzpah to having a spirally looking staircase. It's really fancy looking.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, that's the only thing. That's my only dilemma as I'm trying to figure out. Other than that, the space itself. I mean, this is kind of what I had in mind. And then I don't know. I did 3D models of the booths on the side.
Mhm.
Like the little classic uh, greasy spoon diner booths on the side here, and then there'll be some portraits of possibly comedians or celebrities of some sort on the side here. Um, Very similar to how I've seen it in comedy clubs before. Um,
Yeah, for sure. And like some maybe some curved booth, like the C-shaped booths
yeah,
with a small like cocktail table in the middle.
yeah. But then there'll also be tables on the outside with chairs, and that's where Clem pretty much sits right here. But yeah, and then
Yeah,
the table.
exactly, exactly. So you might want to put the staircase on the other side.
But
Um,
see, that's the thing is, do I want double staircases for both sides?
yeah, I leave that up to you. I think the aesthetic is whatever you think works the best.
Yeah. And then lastly, I mean, then we have the back. So like, I'm trying to make this pretty prominent,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
bar itself. But there's gonna be stuff back here too. Now I can either fill it with more tables and stuff, or maybe
Mm,
this is a section with rooms. I don't know yet.
maybe it becomes like storage,
Or it could be
or
storage.
yeah,
Or do
like
we? Yeah.
that's where he keeps the kegs of beer. That's where he keeps the extra bottles of whiskey, and it's just like
Hmm.
a storage location.
Yeah. So just some. It's more. It's just mulling around in my head a little bit as to what we're gonna do with Mitchell's bar. Because the other thing also is, if you remember in the original storyboard, um, I had pillars kind of holding up the bar to the ceiling, like kind of these vaulted ceilings, kind of like this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm drawing way, way too much here. It's like you can't really tell, but
No, I mean I can follow you though. Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. So then we have our ceiling up here, but these are giant columns that may have drapery on the high ceilings. I don't know yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't see why not.
Yeah. So, anywho, that's for a whole other stream or a conversation for later.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
Yeah. Yeah.
here with Mitchell. But yeah, I am thinking about his space, his workspace as well.
But so, are you going to give up on Blood Rain, or are you going to stick through the loading screens?
Yeah, I'm still playing it.
Okay.
I just don't have to die as much, and I'm good.
Yeah.
That's all.
I mean, that's really the trick, right? And it's super weird that the loads are that long.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. It's just very inefficient, I guess, the way they set the game up. That's all I can figure.
Yeah, I mean, again, I mean, did you beat the game or
No,
did
I
you?
didn't beat the game. The load times were so frustrating. I was like, well, I'll come
Oh,
back to this later, and then just never came
okay.
back to it. Yeah.
How far did you get?
Oh,
Would you say?
barely anywhere. I think I got to the first boss encounter with the guy in the trench coat and the sword.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Super, super early. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's. It feels like he's a pain point kind of character, where it's a make it or break it part of the game early
Yeah.
on, especially. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, I feel really underpowered fighting this guy. And
Uh-huh.
so I'm like, well, I just don't really feel like being, dealing with this right now. And so I just put it on pause
Yeah,
and yeah. Yeah.
I remember that part because the save rooms were pretty much one screen over, two screens over. You go over there, die, then you just go back, and then you're not playing the game. You're just watching. It's
Yeah,
gonna.
you're spending more time in the loading screen than you
Yeah,
are dealing with that
yeah.
boss. And
That's how I felt. I was
yeah,
like,
really
wow.
what I wanted to do is just like, well, next time I turn it on, I'll just, grind on enemies for a while and level up a few times and then just kind of be OP for the boss battle.
Yeah.
Um, and just do it that way. I just didn't feel like grinding at the time. I'm like, well, I have this other game that I can play, so that's what I'm going to do.
Hmm.
Hmm. But Oh, he's looking really good. You're right. It's a better like just neutral pose.
Yeah,
Um,
and that would be perfect for behind the bar. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, for
I'm
sure.
gonna take the bar here right now,
Yeah,
right there. He already feels, yeah.
yeah, it
I can
definitely.
still use another pose. I mean, that's fine, but
Yeah, I mean, like I can see the sort of an action pose to a certain extent, but like the
mhm,
neutral behind the bar pose is I think, yeah, you're right about that.
yeah,
Well, that's a pretty good stopping point. We're at 30 minutes, um, and we'll pick up where we left off next week.
sounds like a plan.
Great. Well, thanks for drawing James while we rambled, and I think we got a lot of like story stuff in.
So
And yeah, and so we'll be back next week, same bat time, same back channel.
sounds good.
All right, we'll see y'all later. Good night.
Take care. Good night.